Did I ever tell you, gentlemen, the story of my time as a freshwater sailor, and of my journey into that heart of... What? Achebe. Things fall apart? Sacrifice? In Things Fall Apart, the main character Quanquo sacrifices parts of himself throughout the story in order to uphold his ideal of aggressive, violent masculinity that ultimately Things Fall Apart is criticizing and advocating for a more gentle, understanding, and empathetic ideal of masculinity. First up is Quanquo's adopted son Ikemefuna, who Quanquo murders after his death was ordered by the clan priests. Now, nobody expected Quanquo to do this. Nobody expected Quanquo to even go with the group of people who were going to kill Ikemefuna. But he did anyways, because he's afraid, constantly, all-consumingly afraid of being seen as weak, or, as he thinks of it, feminine, in any capacity, ever at all, to any extent. Now, nobody would have thought less of Quanquo if he hadn't gone. His best friend Obirika confirms this as he's criticizing Quanquo for going with the party and killing his son. Nobody thinks Quanquo did the right thing in going, except for Quanquo, who believes that because he's a man, a real man, that he should have gone, that he needed to do this. He did not. All it does is make things worse for himself and his family, and him standing in the village, really. Quanquo goes into a depression over this, even if he doesn't really understand what it is. He's deeply saddened by it. It tears his family apart, farther alienating one of his sons, and generally just makes things worse for himself. He didn't need to do this. Nobody wanted him to do this. But because Quanquo sees himself as a real man, he chose to do it. Next up is his son, Noe. Quanquo disowns Noe after he converts to Christianity and leaves the village. Now, why Noe converted is a little complicated, but Quanquo was eternally disappointed in his son, constantly, because Noe was kinda weak, not very aggressive, he was into womanly things, like stories, so womanly, and Quanquo would not stand for this. Unacceptable, completely not. Not my son. So he starts trying to beat the manliness into Noe with his fists. Obviously, all this does is alienate his son, driving him away, and ultimately completely away into the village as Quanquo disowns him. Again, nobody thinks that Quanquo is really doing the right thing here. Nobody thinks that Quanquo's version of masculinity should be ideal. Nobody in his village is advocating for that except for Quanquo. And Quanquo's in pursuit of this now has cost him a son. Cost him 2 sons. Noe wouldn't have left if Quanquo hadn't beat him like this and constantly tried to reshape him into a violent, angry man. But Quanquo believes that that's what a man should be, and it costs him a second son. At the end of the story, Quanquo commits suicide. This happens after he killed the British messenger. Now, a group of men from Quanquo's village, including himself, had been imprisoned kind of wrongly, and Quanquo wanted retribution. Retribution that could only be paid in blood and taken with guns and steel. Nobody, nobody supported Quanquo after he murdered the British messenger. His fellow men of the village were quiet. Nobody supported him. Nobody cheered his actions. He went home afterwards and hung himself. Quanquo did what he thought a man should do. Because a man is violent in Quanquo's mind. Because a man is aggressive. Because a man, above everything, proves who is right and who is wrong with pure violence and aggression. It costs him his life. In the end. But all of these sacrifices, I mean, in stories, sacrifices usually are supposed to make things better because the hero has done the hard thing. Because they did ultimately the right thing. But Quanquo is never doing the right thing with these sacrifices. They're the end result of bad choices from misleading morals and ideals. Nobody supports his actions, nobody thinks what he's doing is correct except for himself. And it continues to cost him more and more and more and more until it's his own life. Quanquo is a victim of his own actions because he failed to learn the empathy, understanding, or ability to just even chill like a tiny bit ever necessary to have gotten through this story with a better result. Things Fall Apart does not agree with Quanquo. It is criticizing him at every turn as his life gets worse and worse and worse because he fails to change. And all it really would have taken for things to get better is for him to have been a more empathetic and kind person.